Welcome to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator, the podcast exclusively designed to help personal injury law firms reach their full potential and serve their clients better. Today's episode is co-hosted by Chad Dudley, partner at Dudley DeBosier Injury Lawyers, and Micki Love, president of CJ Advertising, co-founders of Accelerator Law Firm Consultants.
Welcome to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator, the podcast exclusively designed to help personal injury law firms reach their full potential and service their clients better. Today, Micki and I are super excited about the guest, Arnie Malham. Arnie's here, and he's been a friend of ours for probably about 20 years now, I think. I look back to the first time I emailed Arnie back in, I think, 2003 or 2004. I was an associate at a law firm wanting it to grow. I said, Arnie, help us out. He was committed at the time to another firm, but at some point down the road, we got the chance to work together. And I can say he's been instrumental in the growth of our firm in a variety of different ways. First, as leading CJ Advertising as our ad agency, as a friend, as a mentor. Got so much to talk about. So fired up to have Arnie on board. Micki, I know you also have known Arnie a long time.
Since 1993, when I was a receptionist at a law firm, Arnie made his visit, and it's been a lot of fun ever since. So it's kind of full circle to be at CJ now and come back to this podcast and be able to talk to you, Arnie. It's just amazing. Everything you built, the fact that you've allowed us to help carry it on, it's just been so much fun. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Arnie, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you.
How you've been making the conference tour, the podcast tour. I know you wrote a book that everyone should read, Worth Doing Wrong. Before we get into all that, tell us a little bit, how did you get into the personal injury industry? I mean, how did you wind up in this wild space that we call home?
Well, I was a sales rep at WTVF News Channel 5 in Nashville. I had no idea what I was doing, and so they would feed me accounts that would just come through the door and that other people didn't want. And can you believe that other people kind of shunned away from personal injury accounts? It was crazy to think that, but they did. And I ended up with 3 or 4 personal injury accounts at the station, repping the station, if you will. And what I noticed were that most of the agencies representing personal injury lawyers were a little below the line of what we call credible, and that most of the business operations within the personal injury law firm were far below the standards, nowhere near what we consider good today, but certainly not even good in the time. And so I saw an opportunity. I saw an opportunity where businesses weren't being run well, they weren't being represented well, and I got to know J. Marshall Hughes, Hughes and Coleman, and he believed in a few things I was preaching. He allowed me into his world, oftentimes to talk about the business way more than the marketing. And one day I asked Jay Marshall, why am I here? Why are we talking about the business and not the marketing? And he said, son, the more you know about my business, the more you can help me with the marketing. And that was the beginning of my journey in the personal injury space.
And like all things, like all new ventures, like all times you leap out in faith, it goes perfectly smoothly, and it's just a straight upward climb to glory, right?
That's
no
right.
setbacks,
It's
no
a
surprises.
very straight line. From 1993 to the day 2017 when I exited the agency, it was just smooth sailing. I'm a blessed man sailing in calm winds.
Well, I think, one of the things that is most memorable, at least for me, is that by the time I got to know you, that you had created a group of law firms that were all drinking the same Kool-Aid. They're all buying into the same ideas that how you run your firm is as important as marketing, and that part of that is creating a fantastic culture. And the culture that existed at CJ and by association seemed to permeate into the firms that worked with CJ was incredible. Why was that so important to you? Why was culture cool before it was cool at CJ Advertising?
Well, there are really 2 cultures that sort of helped us be successful and continues. I can't dismiss, say it enough. Continues to make the agency successful. One was the culture of client sharing with each other. And that was one where instead of clients remaining in their office, in their market, learning only what happened in their office, we were able to get clients to visit each other and talk to each other about what was working and not working in their firms. And so the more we did that, the faster the flywheel turned.
Mm-hmm.
In the second culture was the culture of the team, our team of experts handling nothing but personal injury lawyers build their business. And what we learned very quickly was that if we didn't have tenure, which equaled knowledge, then our clients didn't trust us. And so we could not afford to turn over team members and lose that knowledge. And so it became a culture of keeping great team members in place to learn and grow the agency so that we could help our firms grow, which helped us grow, which helped our firms grow, and it sort of just spun, that double cultured flywheel spun into success.
And it's, we hear this, that people walk into, place and great culture, and you have a saying that I've borrowed and probably bastardized about a million times, is that culture, like smell, every house has a smell, right? Every firm, every business has a smell. You walk in and you can just kind of sense it. When you walk into, CJ, and you go, oh man, the culture seems great. Everyone's so nice. Everyone's so cheerful. And you almost take it for granted. And like, it just wasn't, they think that when you opened the doors way back when, it just started off that way. And it was and it's never been anything but that's not true. What does it take to get from, and when do you start? Is there ever, too soon to start?
Well, for 10 years, Chad, I'd ran my business. I'd argue that I ran my business the wrong way. I wanted to be I aspired to be the boss and rather than the leader. And so I tried to keep up with what everyone was doing. I tried to tell people how to do their jobs. I tried to manage the hours specifically they worked, or how they communicated to our clients. I tried to be a solopreneur that controlled all the people around me. And we see this often in small law firms where the lawyer is the center of the sort of universe they live in. But what I learned, and you're looking for that phrase of when you walk into a business, you can smell the culture. And I stole that and bastardized it from Jack Daly, who speaks on sales excellence and culture in businesses. And what we were able to accomplish with CJ was were a place where you walked in and you could smell a positive culture, and you didn't actually smell it. Because sometimes you'd smell chocolate chip cookies in the kitchen, or sometimes you'd smell popcorn from the popcorn machine. Hopefully, all good things that I can think of. But what you could sense, if you will, were the posture of the people walking around, the smiles on their faces, the brightness in their eyes, because they wanted to be there. We create a culture where people wanted to be as opposed to had to be. And so there's 100 things that go into that, but the number one thing for me was getting from the status of boss to leader. And once I was able to begin that transition, because I don't know if we ever fully make the transition, that's when our culture started to change for the better, where tenure started to grow, and where things sort of happened without me forcing them to happen. They happened with the momentum of the business.
And that's an interesting concept. You say going from boss to leader. If you're to boil that down a little bit and say, here's some of the core elements that differentiates a boss from a leader, what does that mean to you?
Well, the boss, I like to talk about someone when they're a solopreneur. When they're a solopreneur, it doesn't matter how many team members they have, or they would call them employees if they're a solopreneur. They know more how to do the job than anyone else around them. And they surround themselves, and I did this for years, with people who help me do that job well. They help me have the time to write scripts or make a media buy or evaluate a client's marketing or produce the spot just right. Jimmy and I would spend hours, trying to get just the perfect line out of our clients. And we would hire people that helped us do the other things so that we could do what we did best. Once I got over the transition and became an entrepreneur, I realized my job is not to hire people to help me do what I do best. My job is to hire people that do what I do best better than me. That when that moment comes, when our team members are producing commercials, writing scripts, editing copy, buying media, negotiating marketing opportunities better than I could have done it. Now I've reached an entrepreneurial status. As a leader, my job is to make their jobs as easy for them as it can possibly be, to make them have the most knowledge they can possibly have in their expertise, to make sure they want to come to work and don't have to come to work. My job ceases being do the work and begins and never ends being keep our team productive, happy, and rolling forward.
And that is so well put. And Micki and I have had the opportunity to work with, hundreds of firms at this point, and we see where bosses have to make the choice to become leaders, or they don't grow. Somewhere around 40 to 80 team members, somewhere in that range, where you no longer can keep track of what everyone's doing. You can no longer just by force keep your finger in everything and understand the pulse of everything that's going on. You have to, Micki, your favorite phrase at that point is to let go to grow, right? And what do you see the things are hold up in that phase? What prevents people from becoming leaders rather than bosses when you're working, Micki, when you're working with firms?
Control, right? So they're just afraid to let go because it's their baby, right? They've massaged it and grown it this far, and to let go is just this huge fear, when really it should be like this relief moment, right? Like, you've gotten these people that are able to do the jobs better than you, maybe smarter than you in some instances, and they can really take it to the next level as long as you're there to kind of guide them for your vision, lay that vision out very clearly for them. Like, they can really take that and do something with it if you give them the grace and the space to be able to make that happen, which, Arnie, I think you've been good about doing that with, at least with CJ. I know, just having been able to work with that team firsthand and be able to experience how that agency has just really been able to grow with the leadership that you gave them. So it's just been really cool to watch. And so letting go to let it grow, I'm sure that was hard for you too, right, Arnie? Like, to think that you're going to turn over your biggest account to somebody else to work on.
Yeah, and to give full credit, you guys have taken the concept that I started and even further. I had fears every day of my working journey, but what changed for me, and I think this may resonate with some people, once you get to that point where it's all you can do, where you've got your finger in so many holes in the dike, it's actually pretty miserable. So you feel trapped by your business as opposed to controlling your business. And I actually recommend to those people, if you can't give up the control, then you're way better off falling back to a 20, 30 person business. That number varies depending on what kind of business you're in. But if you're going to your place of business, and you're not even enjoying it, something's obviously wrong. And I'd love to say, I'd always seen the light. I was at the point, I didn't enjoy going to work. My team didn't enjoy going to work. My clients could tell that we didn't enjoy going to work. And so we made a change out of a pure necessity. I had to make a change out of pure necessity. It was either grow or potentially collapse. And so the growth we experienced wasn't through me, it was through our people.
And Arnie, one other thing, how does somebody, what is the best pulse of culture? Is there a way to say, objectively, we have good culture, or not? Is there
so many? There's tools out there, and we used to do a monthly morale survey, which is something you want to think you guys still carry on in CJ now. But the easy number is, what's your tenure? Are people sticking around for this journey? And I don't mean the kind of tenure where you're scared to fire people, or they have it so good they'll never leave, maybe a government job kind of thing. I mean a tenure where people don't want to leave, and there's a line of people out the door that want to come in. That's the kind of tenure that says you're doing something right in your business, and you're probably getting culture pretty right as well.
And those are all good tools, because you wonder, like sometimes, where they say that they don't be fooled, and the easiest person to fool is yourself. And how do you know when, like, as leaders, what if the culture is you? What if the culture is your problem?
Let me make sure I say this very clearly. It is you. And this is I speak to entrepreneurs around the world all the time, and the number one most uncomfortable thing I tell rooms full of entrepreneurs are that whatever culture you have in your business right now is exactly the culture you deserve. Culture reflects leadership, and my friend, you are the leader. There is no way around that opportunity. And so you say, oh, no, I'm not in charge of culture. Someone else. You are in charge of, it's my people. You are in charge of, your culture reflects you. It's not your people. It's not your clients. It's not your industry. It's not your geography. It's not your building. It's you.
Yes. And so, we talk about, we get these questions and people ask, well, I'm not the boss. I'm not the partner. I might be, on the front lines. I might be someone, I answer phones. I'm in intake. Do I really have control over the culture at our firm? And you would say,
I would say that every human on your team, every team member plays a role, right? That every person that comes to work has an opportunity to make someone's day, to trust them to do their job, to help them be a better human, to encourage people, to cheer for people, to be responsible for how they look, respond, contribute. And so everyone plays a role. Culture reflects leadership. It always starts at the top. And at the top, leaders recognize people who walk the walk, talk the talk, get the job done, encourage their team, their coworkers, and those are the people that they promote. When we fail as leaders, it's not just the things we applaud, it's the things we tolerate. Those are the two things that are most seen by our workforce. What do we applaud? What do we tolerate? And that sets our culture.
And as leaders, what are things that you've seen leaders do to unintentionally kill the culture?
Well,
I say unintentionally. Maybe.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's. Look, these are things that may or may not hit you the right way or hit your audience the right way. Where you park, how you greet people, what happens when you're walking in or out of your building, how you treat wait staff at restaurants in front of anyone, quite frankly, whose input you ask for and when, how you maintain your facility, how you delegate opportunities, who you trust. I mean, all these things can take such a negative turn for a business so quickly. And so once a leader typically realizes they are responsible for culture, then they can start paying attention to these things way more than how people stack nickels. Like this is the beginning of a culture that rocks, is a leader who recognizes what they do. We tend to judge others by the things they do, but we tend to judge ourselves by our intentions. And so once we realize that it's not our intentions that anyone's judging us by, it's the things we do, then we start to do things a little differently.
And I know that when we purchased CJ from you, and the one thing that stood out was that the culture was very open to giving feedback at all levels, and in a
almost too much,
healthy,
right?
But it was a very healthy, that everything was on the table. It could be whether it was someone who was, front desk, reception, or somebody on the executive team, or everyone was very comfortable saying what they thought and how they felt. And we were fortunate to have stepped into that space. And my question was, well, how did you get the team there? How did you get the organization there where they felt comfortable sharing, not always positive, but like the good, the bad, and the ugly on a regular basis?
Chad, the name of the book that I end up writing about this experience is called Worth Doing Wrong. And the reason the title is Worth Doing Wrong is that because we were willing to do it wrong until we got it right. And so when you ask, how did we get there? We got it by doing it wrong until we got it right. But when we got it right, we did things like this. The receptionist typically gave us at least 50, if not 75% of what we needed to know about candidates looking for jobs, because it was how the candidate treated the receptionist that we cared a whole lot about. We did monthly morale surveys where we would ask the entire team. This was 225 people making up 2 different companies to tell us what we needed to do better. We thought we were understanding the comments, but until we brought in frontline people to read the comments with the executive team, we had no idea what they were talking about. Frontline were able to explain to us what the comments meant, so we were able to respond to them. It's things. I believe we accomplish what you're accusing us of accomplishing by asking people to participate and respecting their answers. It's that simple, and doing it often, and actually taking action on the things that they told us.
And so, worth doing wrong. I've always loved that, and saying, okay, if it's, let's just keep going. And one thing that I've put out there is, and want to get your take on it, is that firms typically don't get, the downside for doing something wrong is usually not that great. It's doing something wrong for long periods of time is where you really get hit. So try things, but iterate, course correct.
Don't sit on
a bad decision for a long period of time. Is that what you guys are doing? We got it wrong, but just not waiting too long to iterate?
Yeah, well, 2 things. Celebrating when we got it wrong just as much as when we got it right. That was a big deal. Like, we wouldn't have been able to get it right without this failure, without this problem, without doing it this way. And it's easy as the boss. Yeah. You or Micki can say, "Oh, I got it wrong. It's okay." It's really hard to recognize other people for getting it wrong on their way to getting it right, and celebrating that and helping them understand that's okay, that's how we get there. That we, someone makes a $100,000 mistake and they expect to be fired, and I'm thinking, you just learned a $100,000 lesson. You're the most valuable person I got. So the willingness to talk about it, the willingness to make example of a few people, not in a bad way, but by recognizing that we celebrate people in this culture who make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and keep rocking forward. That's the culture that we were able to make happen. Micki, do you see that happening in your world now? No mistakes since I left, or a few?
Absolutely no mistakes, Arnie. We have the best team ever, which we do. But we love learning and growing from our mistakes. That's one of the things we always talk about. Did we grow from this? Like, yep, it hurt a little bit. It hurt our pride. It hurt some of our egos. But did we learn from it, and can we grow from it? Let's take the best of whatever just happened and make it better for the next team member, so they don't have to experience that, and then for our clients, so they don't have to go through that again. So it's really cool. I'd love to touch back on the survey for just a moment, because we still do this at CJ, and this was probably the hardest thing that I've had to get over, because it hurts every time I get a comment that doesn't feel real warm and fuzzy. And I know our listeners always are asking Chad and I for something practical that they could implement that would help with culture. And I really believe this survey is one of those things, and you touched on it there for a minute, that you guys respond to every single one of those comments, even when it's not fun to put out there. There's a response, and your team knows that it's authentic and it's coming from a place. How long did it take you from an ownership perspective, a leader perspective, to really feel comfortable with sharing all of that information and being kind of raw and vulnerable with your team members?
Well, the word, there's a multitude of things we believe in. Abundance is something we've always believed in, and transparency is something we've always believed in. Now, it took time to get used to that feeling of being transparent. And the quote that comes to mind is, whatever you think people think, they think it's worth. If you're worried about sharing your financials because you don't want them to know how much money you make or don't make, they think it's worth. If you're scared about sharing a comment because you don't think they know about the comment, they know about the comment. Like, you're the last to know. And so by sharing it, what we try to do was put sunlight on things that we thought could be improved. And sometimes that sunlight forced us to action. Sometimes that sunlight let people know that there's only a few people thinking that, and that it's an easy course correction. But all the times, the sunlight helped us solve the problem. It helped us see it. It helped us talk about it. It helped us get our arms around it. More than not, 98% of the time, the problem was that we didn't communicate enough. We didn't communicate in the right timeline. We didn't explain it in the right way. Like, we didn't ask. We didn't think through a problem of how it looked from the other side. And so what people say, oh, I'm scared to do a survey because I know what people will say. What they'll say will help you become a better business. And if the stuff is so bad that it won't, you're beyond help anyway. So the survey, as long as you don't read the comments alone, as long as you think about an answer over a couple of nights sleep, as long as you're willing to share everything and not just the good stuff, and post the scores so that everyone knows that you're a 6.3 or an 8.7 or whatever you are, then things usually go well. But for a while, we did these as handwritten, like it was this. We started this so many years ago. It was on paper, and people would type the answer because they didn't want us to recognize their handwriting, or they would turn it in the middle of the darkness of night or evening so that we wouldn't know. And because people first think it's a witch hunt, that you're going to make a comment and then we're going to come after you. And so, again, a celebration of the comments that helped us get better, helped build courage for more people to give us comments. The willingness to post the answers live was the courage others folks needed to come forward and help us build a better business.
And Arnie, it's you start off the format for the listeners. What is the questionnaire that you used to ask once a month that we still ask?
It is I believe you still ask, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best place you can imagine working and 1 being the worst, how does CJ rate right now? And so that came with a number. If the score was 4 or less, we required an answer because I can't fix it if I don't know what's going on. And what we found is that 60% of the people left some sort of comment. Many were positive, and those positive comments go a long way to build your culture and the things you need to know about as well. So I think when I left, we had like several thousand comments collected. We did this monthly for years. I think do you guys do it monthly or quarterly now?
We're quarterly, but yeah.
Quarterly now, and so you just carried on this tradition. And I was in your office a few weeks ago, and I was a little pissed because your numbers were better than mine. So it seems like and the other thing is your participation rate was way up there. Like we wanted an 8 or better rating ideally, and at least 80% participation, or we just didn't trust the score. I think you guys had a 96% participation rate. So I was just like, yeah, they're better than me.
I think you started it though. We've built this culture with the tenured people where they trust and believe that, it's not a witch hunt and you can participate and we're going to be responsive. And so from that, people, newer generations of team members as we've grown the agency, don't feel threatened by that question. And it is just one question, right? Like it's not this overburdensome questionnaire where you're trying to really dig in. It's like, hey, tell us where you're at right now and why. And it's really simple and powerful. It's a very powerful tool for me. And I agree, don't read it alone because that can be very scary.
Yeah, I tell people a lot. And for those, that may be listening, that, the 3 or 4 people, relatives of ours, people that are listening, this is not something to do once and stop because you just wasted a lot of time. This will take at least, like every great culture program, it will take 9 months to establish roots, not 9 weeks, not 9 days, 9 months to establish roots. Every cultural program needs a champion, not someone other than you, hopefully not someone on your leadership team, a team member from your organization who will own it, who will build a checklist of do's and don'ts, and will carry this program forward. You give them the willingness to get it wrong on their way to getting it right. Give this thing 9 months. Give any cultural program 9 months, or don't even start it.
And be consistent, right? Like we see some law firms where they start something and they stop it, then they start again, and it just doesn't ever take those roots that you need in order for your team to trust that it's going to be something that sticks. We see that with processes at the law firm. their team has whiplash almost from all the things that firms start and stop. So really making sure that you start a process, you fail at it, you reinvent it, you keep going, but you encourage your team as the why behind the process and keep going toward recovery. I think for me, another thing that I thought, you did that was amazing and way ahead of the curve for the culture at the time was the results only work environment, the ROW as we call it affectionately. And when COVID hit, we were easy breezy, right? Like we were already working. People knew where to work when they couldn't be in the office. And so talk us through how you got there and how you kept accountability with your team to keep things working. Because just this morning I saw a news article from Good Morning America that says people who are working remote produce 2.5 hours less production time than people who work in the office, which I thought was revealing. And I've seen that in some firms, but I'm curious how you are able to establish, like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we have accountability around that.
Well, the key question to a ROW workplace, a results-only work environment, is that a key element is determining what success looks like for every team member. And so it can't just be go do your work. It actually requires us to be better leaders, to have conversations with our people, to understand the goals of the entire business, how the goals of each department tie into the success of the business, and then how each person contributes to that success. And by defining success for each person, now we can start worrying about how to get them to success instead of where they work, what hours they work, how they go about getting their job done. We can just applaud all that if we focus on what success looks like for each person. Again, how that leads to success in the department, how that leads to success in the company. And that was sort of the journey that we went on. Again, we got it wrong a lot on our way to getting it right, but the increased flexibility gave our people a higher desire to help make the entire team successful. It also created a yearning for some to be in the office at times, to get that human interaction. And so our job, my job is I'm going to make the workplace as nice as I possibly can so that when they do come in, when I do have interaction with my people, when I am talking to them, it's something they look forward to. It's not something they have to do.
That's great. One of the, and it's a balance, right? And one of the things, I'm reading a book right now called Unreasonable Hospitality, and
talking great read. Yeah,
it's a great read. And one of the things he was interesting. He says the cultures that maybe have these what appear to be opposing ideas, and they learn to reconcile them. Southwest, we're going to have incredibly affordable airfares, but unbelievable client service, and those can collide and cause issues. But by getting it right, they create this amazing thing. And there's other businesses that have done that. One of the things that CJ reconciled that I thought was impressive is we're going to be a data-driven culture and have great culture, because sometimes you see those ideas collide, right? Hey, we're all about the numbers, and how do you reconcile that with having a great place to work? How did you reconcile those two things?
Well, the data, discipline sets you free, and the data set CJ and its clients free, because and it was all to solve a problem. It was all when a client would call and say, hey, we want to change our marketing strategy for December because we think December is always bad. Well, let's look at the data. Oh, December is traditionally your best month of the year. And I'm certainly making that up because maybe it wasn't, or maybe it was. Or we're going to do this kind of advertising instead of that kind of advertising. Well, let's look at the data. Hey, I believe our calls I think our cases are off. Well, let's look at the data. Actually, your calls are way up, but your sign-up ratio is down. So let's look at how you're doing intake. Has anything changed? Yeah, Mary just started there last week. Oh, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
So it was the data, that consistently set us free.
No, it was good stuff. And look, I know that we're running out of time, but we got a few just sort of in the interview questions. I'd like to ask right now, what's your favorite piece of tech that you're using? Technology that is making your life easier, making life better. You got a favorite piece of tech?
This is silly, but I recently installed a weather machine at a little farm my wife and I run about an hour away, and so it keeps up with dew point and rainfall and heat and all the things that I would go out and check. is now it just comes to me on my phone. And I think it's just amazing. It's like having your own weatherman in your pocket. And so it's a silly thing, but it's given me joy here in the last couple of days.
Love it. Love it. And another question is, how do you start your day? How does Arnie get up and get after the day? What are your morning routines?
Look, it's changed over the years, but in my world today, I walk my dog with no electronics, like just, outside when at first light. I come back and I roll through emails that I didn't want to answer in the last 8 or 12 hours with a cup of coffee, and then once I've cleared of that, I can go do anything. Right, I'm sort of a reset.
Yeah.
So that's what I do now. I used to get up and do a run before anything, but I'm old now and I need a couple of cups of coffee to kind of get going.
I hear you. And last question: best book you've read so far this year? Best book that you'd recommend?
Well, I think I mentioned this to you in another phone call, but I'm about 80% through Shoe Dog, which is the Philip Knight story of Nike. Now, this is not a new book. This is a book that's been out a few years. I've listened to way more books than I read. It is incredibly entertaining. I've enjoyed it so much. I can't wait to read the next chapter. But I read about 12 to 14 books a year, some for fun, some to expand my mind, but I can't recommend it enough. The company I run now is called Better Book Club. It's a little SaaS company that I know CJ still uses. I know Dudley uses. And it helps get books in the brains of your people. As we close this thing down, I would just tell you one thing leaders do is they read a book and then they tell their team to read that book. Your team does not want to read what you read. Reward your team, applaud your team for reading whatever they want to read, but your last book is not their next book. And so Better Book Club helps people do that. If I can help your team anyone listening to this, help them get more books in their brains through Better Book Club, please reach out.
Oh, great stuff. Well, Arnie, it has been an absolute joy. It's been a blast getting to hang out with you and visit and just talk about these topics. And I really appreciate your time and appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for carrying the torch of CJ and the camels forward. I can just tell by all the people on your team that I still recognize, all the clients are still with you, that things are going great. You and Micki have led this thing to great heights, and I love where you're at.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Arnie.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time.